President Trump, who has largely downplayed Russia's role in the election, ignored reporters' questions about the indictments.
Do you feel vindicated in the Mueller investigation?
Mr. President, will you punish Russia?
Do you feel vindicated, Mr. President?
Will you punish Russia to try to help you win the election, Mr. President? Will you put a Russia probe to halt? Will you put sanctions on Russia? Nothing on Russia, Mr. President? Is it a hoax, Mr. President?
Join us for tea.
The president was on his way to Mar-a-Lago for the holiday weekend. While en route to Air Force One, the president tweeted, quote, "Russia started their anti-U.S. campaign in 2014, long before I announced that I would run for president. The results of the election were not impacted. The Trump campaign did nothing wrong, no collusion." Later, in an official White House statement, the president said in part, quote, "We cannot allow those seeking to sow confusion, discord, and rancor to be successful. It's time we stop the outlandish partisan attacks, wild and false allegations, and far-fetched theories, which only serve to further the agendas of bad actors like Russia and do nothing to protect the principles of our institutions." Jeff Pegues has more on what the special counsel found.
The defendants allegedly conducted what they called information warfare against the United States.
Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said the Russian goal was simple:
to promote discord in the United States and undermine public confidence in democracy.
Prosecutors say the operation began 2 years before the 2016 presidential election. It was run out of this nondescript building in St. Petersburg, Russia. The 37-page indictment charges 13 Russian nationals and 3 Russian companies with spending more than $1.2 million every month on the operation. It typically looked like this: online posts attacking Hillary Clinton, boosting Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump. Early on, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio were also targets. The court documents allege the Russian operatives were specifically instructed to use any opportunity to criticize Hillary and the rest. Except Sanders and Trump, we support them. The investigators believe the Russian campaign also aimed to suppress the vote. An Instagram message from a fake group called Woke Blacks advised against voting for either party's nominee. "We cannot resort to the lesser of two devils," it said. "Then we'd surely be better off without voting at all." The indictment also alleges that some members of the Trump campaign unwittingly retweeted some of the Russian content. But Rosenstein emphasized the indictment does not allege that any American had a role in the operation.
And there's no allegation in this indictment that any American had any knowledge. And the nature of the scheme was that the defendants took extraordinary steps to make it appear that they were ordinary American political activists.
The Russian businessman charged with running the operation scoffed at the indictment today, calling Americans very impressionable people and saying that if they want to see the devil, let them see. The indictment doesn't carry any weight in Russia, and it is unlikely that the suspects will be extradited here to the U.S. to stand trial. Rosenstein also made the point that the indictment does not allege that the Russian influence operation altered the results of the election. Tanya.
So, Jeff, do these indictments offer any vindication for the president?
Well, of course, the president thinks that it does vindicate him. Of course, you saw the tweet that he put out late this afternoon saying that the Trump campaign essentially was not involved, no collusion. So, of course, the president thinks that this vindicates them, and he's been saying that all along, that there's no collusion. But if you look at the indictment and what it says, you know, it talks about this operation, this Russian operation that was based or headquartered out of St. Petersburg, Russia, to influence this campaign in favor of Sanders and of then candidate Trump. And so, as the U.S. intelligence agencies have said for the past year and a half or so, this was an operation to put the finger on the scale for Donald Trump. It was an operation that was backed, according to U.S. intelligence agencies, by Vladimir Putin, because you simply cannot carry out this type of Russian influence operation on a foreign adversary without the blessing of Vladimir Putin. That's what the U.S. intelligence agencies have been saying the whole time. But again, yes, the president right now thinks that this vindicates him. But if you look at what the Deputy Attorney General said, Tanya, he said specifically that there is no allegation in this indictment that any American had a role in this operation. So this indictment, we thought that was a notable phrase there that he mentioned in his press conference.
Yes, interesting. And so, Jeff, what are the immediate consequences then of these indictments? And should we expect to see any arrests?
Well, we should not expect to see any arrest. I mean, it is unlikely. Typically, when you have big foreign adversary, nation state related cyber cases like this, whether it's against China, North Korea, or Russia, it is hard to indict and then bring those suspects, whoever they are, to the U.S. here to stand trial. And so it is unlikely that we'll see any of those folks mentioned in that indictment in handcuffs or even on trial here in the U.S. But it certainly sends a message to Russia that this is a criminal matter now. We are aware of what you did during the 2016 election, and there are many in the intelligence community and the law enforcement community who believe that to stop this type of interference in the U.S. Election systems, you have to send a strong message to the Kremlin, and that's, in a way, what this indictment does.
A strong message, indeed. So, Jeff, what happens next in the special counsel's investigation?
Well, this investigation is ongoing. This today was another milestone. There have been a few already last year when you had the indictment of the former campaign chairman Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, his associate, George Papadopoulos, Mike Flynn, of course. So there have been other milestones. This is another one, of course, and this is an important one because it calls out these Russian operatives who the indictment alleges carried out this influence campaign. But the investigation obviously continues. The big moment that we're waiting for is when and if the president sits down for an interview with the special counsel. We know that those negotiations have been underway. And also Rick Gates, someone that we know is potentially in the process of negotiating a plea deal. So there is a lot more to come.
Absolutely. Jeff Pegues in Washington, thank you.
My pleasure.